Big Brother. Like most reality shows, returning players are gonna exist. It would make no sense to cast some all-time greats of the show and not let those people try to bring some of that magic back for another season. It's free cheese for a great product every time, at least in theory. Cause yeah, let's hold our horses here. Just because somebody was great or enjoyable on their original season does not mean they are going to bring that same flair again. This actually happens quite a lot in Big Brother specifically, and that is what this video is about today. I'm going to talk through 7 players that I feel were much worse on their return to Big Brother, or to put it simply, the 7 biggest disappointments. It's very hard to give a great follow-up performance to something that was really good the first time, but it can be done. But these 7 just simply don't do that. So I'm going to go into these 7 people, rank them from 7 to 1 based on how disappointed I personally felt watching them, and just go through why they may have been disappointing on these returns. Maybe their first run was just too great to top. Maybe they turned out to be not as good of a player as we originally thought. Or maybe they just brought absolutely nothing or turned out to be a gross person. Any and all of these reasons will be talked about in this video as I get to the bottom of what went wrong. Before I get into the ranking, I got 2 things. The first is to let y'all know that next week's video will have the same style of video on it, except I'm going to be talking to 7 people that I felt improved the most on a return and managed to top their previous run. So if you enjoyed this video, stay tuned for that video coming in a week's time. And the best way to stay tuned for a video like this is to subscribe. You'll be able to stay up to date with everything I'll be putting out, and it's the easiest way to show your support on this video. Alright, let's do this as I drop into the 7 people who were the biggest returning player disappointments in Big Brother history. Oh boy, I'm not starting this list off in a great way because people will look at me and be like, what are you talking about? This person had an amazing run on their second attempt, actually getting the exact same placement that they did on their first attempt. And yes, their second run is incredible, but it is just a tad bit worse to me than her first. And then I can't exactly ignore her third and fourth time playing, just leaving so much to be desired. So yes, I do have Janelle Pierzina on this list at number 7. Janelle is one of the most iconic Big Brother house guests of all time, and that is because of her back-to-back runs on Season 6 and Season 7. Season 6 in particular is one of the best runs in Big Brother history, ridiculed with iconic moments, and she's pretty much Big Brother 6 in my head, falling just short of the win at the end. Then she returns again in Big Brother All-Stars and is always involved in something. From the Season 6 alliance against the House, to working with Chilltown, to breaking the comp record, and not just breaking it, but destroying it, and then taking down Chilltown, or at least Will, and then falling short once again in 3rd place in a situation where she would have won if she was at the end. But while the difference is slight, it's just not as iconic to me. She's overshadowed a good bit by Will here. I mean, she is very important throughout this season, but is portrayed as Will's puppet that he's just using to do whatever he wants. She's pretty much getting played the entire season up until the final hour, where she figures out what the hell is going on and cuts Will. But even then, I think it was Erica of all people who figured that out first, so I can't even give Janelle full credit for that move. Janelle is great. Wonderful even on BB7, made that an incredible season that I love so much, but I don't think she's ever the main character on that season, when she absolutely is the main character at many points in BB6. And then moving on from that, I think it should go without saying that BB14 and BB22 are also disappointments. Taking a much longer hiatus in between all of these seasons, you could just see Janelle wasn't the same person, or at least on the show, she wasn't the same person. I can't name you a single thing she did in BB14 except win that challenge where she had to move her tongue around on the thing. And then she's voted out the literal second that she's eligible to be. And while in BB22, I was obviously rooting for her because, like, duh, she just wasn't as good in comps as she was in her heyday. And even within the duo of her and Kaysar was by far the more interesting member of that duo on All-Stars. All-Stars 2, I should say. And Kaser was pretty close to making it on this list. I was between him and Janelle, but I think Kaser really did deliver on BB22 in the short time he was there, while Janelle did not in the slightest on her last 2 appearances. I do think it's pretty easy to explain why Janelle was considered quote-unquote disappointing, at least to me, on future returns. I just think her run in BB6 is one of the most iconic ever, and it's unbelievably hard to top that performance. And while BB7 was very close, it wasn't quite to BB6 level for me. And then to have 2 of the most disappointing single season performances on this entire list afterwards, I think Janelle has to be here for me. I fully get if you disagree. I still love Janelle. That's just the name of this video and why she's on the list. Now to number 6, I have another person who competed on All-Stars 2. Spoiler alert, a lot of this list is people from All-Stars 2, so be ready for that. But this is somebody who went from one of the most iconic alliances of all time to the guy that everybody just made fun of for being old, and that's Memphis Garrett. I was honestly really excited to see Memphis in BB22. I just love the BB10 cast as a whole, so to get representation in the modern day on this show was so interesting. And it would have been fun to see what Memphis would do on his own without Dan, but learning from Dan at the same time. And while yes, he is in the dominant alliance all season, Memphis, in actuality, was kind of a dud. His 3 storylines were how he's an old fart, he hates David, and he got with Christmas at the very end of this season, which wasn't really even shown on the show much. To put it bluntly, he's unmemorable. Memphis replaced Josh Martinez on the cast at the last minute due to Josh getting COVID, and in the moment, I was really happy to see more old school representation. Looking back at it though, that damn positive COVID test might have just ruined the entire season. Josh would have been electric in Memphis's place, and that's a shame. And maybe it's my fault for putting too high of expectations on this man, but he just didn't deliver on a return. And I think this boils down to 2 things. Either Memphis just got a bit older and didn't have the same fire or game he did the first time, or Memphis was never that interesting of a person and was more of a product of BB10. Memphis had his moments in BB10, but those moments were nothing compared to what pretty much everybody else on that cast was bringing. I think in the grand scheme of the BB10 cast, as a character, Memphis is probably bottom 5. Is that crazy to say? I don't think it is. So you translate that to this next season, and maybe Memphis was never that great. And then on this season, just even worse than he was, which made him irrelevant and one of the most boring parts of an already boring-ass season in BB All-Stars 2, which is good enough to put him on this list at number 6. Oh my Atlanta, aren't we all shocked to see another Big Brother All-Stars 2 returnee on this list? And this one, like Memphis, was somebody that really didn't bring anything on the return, except this was the person I might have been most excited for on this All-Stars 2 cast, and that's Kevin Campbell. Kevin was somebody that was talked about for years as an underrated player, somebody that not enough people talk about. He's somebody that could kill it on an All-Stars or a Second Chances season. And then we actually got our exact wish, and he disappointed all of us. I don't mean that in a rude way. I just have 0 memories of anything Kevin did all season. Like, how do I talk about him? It's unmemorable and extremely disappointing. I think seeing Kevin there at least still brought me some joy, which is why he's not higher on this list, but he could be higher on this list just based on what we actually got, because it was a rough one. I am super curious though to discuss why this happened. Why was Kevin basically nothing on BB22 after delivering a lot on BB11? And I think the conclusion I've come to is that Kevin is a more passive player than we all remember. We all remember Kevin's move to lie to Big Jeff and get him to target Russell and essentially get the 2 biggest threats in the game out back to back. But outside of that, Kevin is a way more low-key player. He doesn't stand out, and that is on purpose, yes, but it also doesn't lead to riveting television. And I don't think Kevin was riveting television game-wise in BB11 until the end, where he had to play from the bottom. And we don't really think of it like that because of the great diary rooms Kevin had throughout the whole season. So when we jump into BB22, you take out the great diary rooms, and you're just left with Kevin trying to lay low, but laying low to the point where he doesn't really do anything. He becomes the pawn of the season and simply accepts his fate from very early on. I just don't think Kevin wanted it as badly this time, so the fight wasn't there when his back was against the wall, and that led him to being a complete dud and a massive disappointment, and the number 5 disappointment on this list. Now for number 4, I'm finally not talking about somebody from BB22. No. Instead, I am diving into the BB18 well, a cast that had 4 returning players in it, and in a similar vein to Kevin, and this player is kind of in a similar vein to Kevin to me, but just lasted a lot longer, and that was James Hewling. James was a fan favorite in BB17, and so obviously was going to return at the next opportunity that was given. He would play pranks on people, won comps, made bold moves, and was just a likable presence on the episodes. Hell, I really enjoyed James watching him in BB17 live, and I was stoked that we were going to get him back to back on season 18. And then on BB18, he became a complete shell of himself in every single way. The pranks, gone. The comp wins, oh, he sucks at that unless it's endurance. Making bold moves, no, he was one of the most passive players on the season. And then being a likable guy, maybe he would have been if he was shown on the show, but he rarely was because he wasn't doing anything. I think James saw his game in BB17 and thought that he was doing too much and put too big of a target on his back. So he decided to correct that by doing absolutely nothing this season, which, I get it if you want to skate by and make it to the end, but he skated by and then never tried to turn it on. He kept on skating until the very end and was a GOAT with no hopes of winning the game, and nothing I really enjoyed from him this season. If the goal was to entertain and win Big Brother, James was worse on both ends on his second appearance in drastic ways, which is what gets him to number 4. Now for the top 3. This is kind of the definitive top 3 for me. All 3 of these players were massive letdowns on their return, and turned from literal fan favorites, which all of them did win, to people I have no care to ever see play again. But the technical best of the worst of them is going back to BB22 with Nicole Anthony. And I mean, goddamn, I have not seen an opinion on somebody change so fast as it did for Nicole. Somebody who was universally loved on BB21 due to being against all the awful people. The underdog we all wanted to see win, just to turn around on BB22 and become somebody nobody cared for and most of the fan base wanted evicted. And to do all of this in only 2 weeks on your return is extremely impressive, I must say. I think Nicole just exposed that she's probably not that great of a player, completely ignoring Janelle's offer to work together and even targeting her instead of targeting the people that were actually after her. It was so frustrating. I mean, her game was literally 2 weeks long, so there isn't much to explain here except that she's pretty bad. But why was she so bad, and what caused this to happen all of a sudden? I personally think that Big Brother 21 was an anomaly. Nicole is somebody I think goes home very early a lot in Big Brother. I don't think Nicole ever really finds herself in a majority and doesn't have the strategic mind to get herself out of that situation. She survived long enough in BB21 for the majority alliance to turn on itself and let them eat each other alive as her and Cliff made their way to the end. But even then, they screw up the final 5 round and lose the game because of it. So even on her original run, she doesn't show a ton of promise. But we were so blinded by how terrible everyone else was that we didn't really care. Nicole Anthony is somebody that I think should only have played Big Brother once. I fully get why she returned as the fan favorite robbed underdog of the last season, but she was only going to ruin her reputation and her standing, and she did that in a massive way. Nobody talks about Nicole Anthony anymore, and that's because of how disappointing of a run she had on All Stars, which puts her at number 3. Now for the top 2. Like Nicole Anthony, 2 people voted fan favorite that returned and completely diminished their reputations to the point where I don't think anybody wants to see these people play again. And while both of these are super close, and if anything, my number 2 is here for really gross reasons. Which is for sure worse than my number 1. I just don't think I had as high of expectations and wasn't as invested in this person. Which leaves Frank Udy at number 2. Frank was beloved in BB14. He was the definition of an underdog and the definition of a male comp beast that people wanted to see succeed because the entire house was against him for so long. Imagine Cameron in BB25, but just a decade prior. That's what Frank was to an even more extreme degree. And even I was curious to see what Frank 2.0 looks like. Maybe he developed a social game and doesn't make himself the house target instantly. And on his return, while game-wise he doesn't really change much, he definitely showed a lot of his true colors in unfortunate ways. The entire Devon situation, if you don't know, just look it up, but damn, it was even shown on the show, so it's just really uncomfortable and instantly shows Frank in a light of, oh, yeah, I really don't want to root for that guy. And that's pretty much what it was. Nobody cared to root for him, and his status of fan favorite turned into a player we all just want to forget. And again, it's not really due to how he played. He played about as well as I thought he would. He got into an underdog role, got into fights, won comps, did his thing, and was eventually evicted. But that entire Devon situation just ruined how everybody feels about him. And I think to see him fall so far from grace is what has to rank him as high as he is. I think Frank's legacy from BB15 to BB17 is like one of America's favorite players ever in Big Brother. Somebody everybody loved and wanted to see return again. But now you jump to the modern day, who's talking about Frank? Nobody. His return completely ruined what people think of him, and I think it's pretty obvious why he's on this list. But he's not number 1. Somehow, some way, somebody else disappointed me much more. And while I don't think this will be everybody's number 1, I don't actually know what the consensus choice would be, but easily for me, my number 1 is going to Tyler Crispin on his return in BB22. And I'm sorry, I simply will never understand how Tyler went from star of BB20, one of the biggest players in the history of the show, one of the best players in the history of the show, fan favorite, the you shoulda won guy, to a complete and utter dud on All Stars. Well, I do understand, and I will explain soon enough, but goddamn is it annoying nonetheless. Tyler had the opportunity to cement himself in Big Brother history, into the GOAT conversation for Big Brother if he dominates this game again, win or lose. And while at first he seemed to be pretty good, things faded so very fast. Tyler was checked out. He didn't want to be in the game anymore. He was ready to go home. And that gets us to the infamous week where Bailey gets evicted, but Tyler told Bailey and Devon he will sacrifice his game for them and for the greater cause, only to back out of that and cause the entire internet to lose their mind, and most people had hopped off the Tyler train. And by time jury started, Tyler just continued to coast, only staying because of the majority alliance he was in. And yeah, he did try flipping at one time to take out Nicole during the triple eviction, but it didn't work. And then he's voted out unceremoniously in 6th place. And nobody cares. To go from one of the best ever to a complete flop is a larger fall from grace than anybody else on this list took, and that has to count for something. Not to mention my investment I had for Tyler going in, only to be slapped in the face repeatedly. It's just the worst feeling ever, and I have no regrets with putting Tyler at number 1. It's not that he had a bad strategy or that he did something dumb. He really just didn't care, and that's worse than any bad gameplay because at least everybody else tried. But why didn't Tyler care? What made him so checked out? The answer is kinda obvious. It's Angela. Angela was his showmance on BB20. And they dated outside of the show and were going super strong. Once Tyler got in that house, he missed Angela bad. Realized he didn't care that much about this game and cared more about being with Angela. And that's why he did the whole Bailey and Devon fiasco, because it wasn't for the bigger cause. It was because it was the last round before jury and Tyler wanted to just go home. So yeah, Tyler was homesick, missing his boo. Tyler is just a complete dud on BB22. And in my opinion, just with all of these circumstances here, I think the lack of care and the fact that there was so much potential that was left on the floor due to him and him only is what makes him number 1 on this list. There we go. A top 7 done with. Now, like I said, next week will be the 7 Big Brother players that improved the most on a return, and I'm very excited for that video. It will be a lot more positive, obviously. And outside of that, expect some of the same content I've been putting out. Big Brother season is still going strong, so I'm also going strong. But I'll have other videos too that aren't Big Brother, don't you worry. But that'll do it for me. If you made it to the end of this video, I love you, platonically of course, and I will undoubtedly see ya when I see ya. Bye-bye.